Hey, Barry, William Magliotti, your host of the Comeback Game podcast. Today we speak to Ray Blakney, who's a very interesting guy and one of the most enjoyable podcast episodes that we've recorded to date. Currently living in Mexico City, business is registered in Massachusetts, United States. Ray's a very interesting guy. He started several businesses, several successful businesses since becoming an entrepreneur back in 2008. Has a lot of experience growing multiple 6 and 7-figure businesses, is definitely a true entrepreneur at heart. And we cover a lot of ground. We cover everything from fear. What is it that stops people from succeeding in business? What is it that stops people from achieving the potential of their business? But we more importantly talk about how his greatest and biggest business actually started as a result of the swine flu. Not only that, this same business grew very, very big, very, very quickly. And then overnight, through a change in Google's algorithm, he lost everything and had to restart again, to which he's done with a huge amount of success. So if you're in business right now, maybe you're running a 6-figure business, maybe you're running a multiple 7-figure business, and you're looking for insights into how you could do things better, how you could really start to stretch your comfort zone, maybe find more fulfillment in what you're doing, and just get some really, really insights from someone who's actually been there from the ground up multiple times, not only successfully, but also not so successfully. You're going to get a lot out of this episode with Ray. And equally too, one thing that we touch on is the importance of having a coach and a mentor when the time is right. It's not always the right time. We've never had more access to information, strategies, tactics, and content than we do right now on the internet. But equally too, how do we manage overwhelm? How do we manage understanding which things should we actually be doing in our business? And this is something that we absolutely cover on this episode. If in an episode you feel that you'd like to have a chat to myself or one of the team here at the Game Changers to help you to grow your business faster, more profitably, and more enjoyably than you ever have before, please feel free to reach out, whether it's through the gamechangers.com.au website or by clicking on one of the links that you find in and around this video somewhere. But let's jump over now to this amazing interview with Ray. And I trust that you'll get as much value out of it as both myself and Ray did, speaking about business growth and entrepreneurship. Good morning. Today I'm joined by Ray Blakney from Mexico. How you doing, mate?
Not too bad, Barry. Thanks for having me on.
Mate, thank you so much. As you can see, it's super early over here in Indonesia, and I think it's afternoon time for you over there.
Yeah, it's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so not too bad.
Cool. Mate, let's just start by sharing with the viewers and listeners today a little bit about you and your background and what it is you do. I know you've got a bunch of different things going on here, avid entrepreneur. I'm looking forward to diving deep, but who are you and what is it you do?
Who am I? Wow, that's a deep question. Let's see. I'll give them the basic background. So I was born in the Philippines. My dad's from the US, but grew up in Africa. I grew up in Istanbul, Turkey. I went to finish high school and went to college in the United States, worked in Silicon Valley for a little bit. I'm a computer programmer by training, got bored of sitting in a cube. So I joined something called the Peace Corps for non-Americans. That's essentially a volunteer organization where they don't pay you anything. And they sent you to help people in need for 2 years. So I dropped my computer engineering job. And when you apply to this organization, they don't let you pick, or they didn't in my day, let you pick where you went. So they looked at my resume and they're like, we need you in Mexico. So I got sent to southern Mexico near the Guatemala border, where I helped with IT, but helping indigenous communities near the border down there in Mexico. I met my wife, who was not part of the indigenous community. She was a Spanish teacher. She was my Spanish teacher, actually. And we got married. And that was my first jump into entrepreneurship. We actually started brick-and-mortar Spanish schools in Mexico, a chain of them. What ended up being a chain of them before we sold them in 2012. But I jumped into 2008 while I was there. In 2008, I jumped online, and I haven't looked back.
Wow.
I think that's the 5-cent tour. Yeah.
So you've been in the entrepreneur game for over 12 years now?
Yeah, since about 2008, even though I didn't realize I was at the beginning. I think it was about 5 or 6 years ago, I realized I'm like, hey, I'm actually an entrepreneur. It wasn't like a conscious decision that I made back in 2008.
Yeah. So something I'm very intrigued about is how your biggest business venture started as a result of the swine flu. Let's start there. Tell us a bit more about that.
Sure. So the biggest business I own right now is called livelingua.com. We're one of the top 3 online language schools in the world. And we're the only one of the top 3 that is bootstrapped. Our 2 competitors have $10 and $20 million last I looked in venture money behind them. We started ours for $59.95, which I think is what it cost for like 1 year on Bluehost back in the day. That was pretty much what we invested in there. I made the website, and my wife was the teacher. So the story behind that was our first business was the brick-and-mortar language school in Mexico. I'm a computer engineer, but for some reason, it didn't even occur to me to have an online business. That wasn't like the logical step I took. I'm like, we got to do a traditional one, rent out a building, have staff, all the rest of it. So we had started that, and I had no money in the bank at the time. My wife and I had no money in our bank accounts. The Peace Corps, when you leave, gives you $2,500 as a thank you, and that was it. That's all the money we had. So we used that to rent, buy furnitures. We would sleep on the floor of our school when we launched on an inflatable mattress. We would then roll up the inflatable mattress, put it under a desk, and use it as a classroom during the day, and then I'd be sitting there inflating it. We couldn't even afford a pump. So I was sitting there, blowing into it for like 30 minutes every night before we went to bed. Luckily, back then I learned about something called SEO, search engine optimization. And so 6 months before our school even launched, we were #1 in Mexico for Learn Spanish in Mexico, Spanish schools in Mexico, and all the rest of it. Our first day, we were fully booked. Super happy about that. We got lucky. A family paid us a deposit for all 10 of them to come and study in cash. Usually we said 20% up front, the rest when you arrive. They're like, no, let's just pay it all. So they got paid 48 hours before. My wife and I were running around just trying to buy furniture for all the classrooms because we hadn't had them fully furnished yet. We were putting them in there into the different classrooms and used all that money. Things are going well. About 6 months later, I don't know if anybody remembers the Mexican swine flu. Actually, right now it's apropos because we're having the coronavirus in China. It was the equivalent of back in 2008, right? This is the news was all over it. Great global pandemic. We're all going to die. So there was even talks about closing off Mexico so that nobody could leave the country while I was there. Overnight, everybody canceled their reservations at our school. We were fully booked. Everybody called and said, sorry, we're not coming down. So at that point, we had to look for something to do. We didn't have very much money in our savings account. 6 months is not enough to build up a large amount of capital. But a lot of our staff who we were responsible for got paid weekly. And unfortunately, budgeting wasn't a big thing. So they would, pay them on Friday, and by the following Friday, they were out of money. So we were responsible for them as well. So we had to think of a way to get them paid work. And my wife is the one who actually had the ideas. Look, we use Skype to talk. Her sister lives in Germany and my parents live in the US. So we use Skype to talk with our families. Why don't we contact our old students and see if they'd be willing to take some classes via Skype with us? They know us. We have our teachers. Let's see if that works. So my thought was like, hey, why don't I just throw up a little website for that too, just in case anybody else wants to do that. So we bought Spanish-lessons-online.com. Back in the day, having words in your URL actually made a difference. And so we launched it and we started giving Spanish lessons over Skype. Back then, nobody was doing it. And luckily, swine flu only lasted a month. The news cycle ended. Within a month, our school was full again. But to our shock and surprise, within 6 months, we were making more money from our online Skype lessons than our brick and mortar language school, even though our brick and mortar language school was profitable at the time. We knew we were onto something. So from then I bought all these little microsites, onlineenglishlessons.net and all the rest of it. And I just literally copied and pasted and did a replace all for the language Spanish and English and all that, and all these websites. And I just threw them up there. And so we had 11 microsites selling language lessons back in 2009, 2010. Nobody else was doing this. We blew it out of the water. Like, we had no competition in Google. So we were #1 across all of it. And that's how LiveLingua was born. I had to build it twice because in 2012, Google did an algorithm update. All those websites disappeared. And I had to start from zero and build it back up again as LiveLingua. But by then I knew the business model worked.
Wow. So you guys started an accidental business. Swine flu actually helped you grow your business.
It did. Yeah, that was that. I give it total credit. I wasn't going to do it without swine flu.
Then you guys actually lost everything again due to some updates through Google and had to rebuild it again after that.
Correct. We were mid 6 figures when we lost it all. And then we've rebuilt it back up to 7 figures since then. Always bootstrapped, no venture, no loans, nothing. It's always been bootstrapping.
So it sounds to me like you haven't necessarily descended from a long line of entrepreneurs and business owners within your family.
No, my family are academics. A lot of them studied Ivy Leagues, Harvard, MIT in the United States, but they study things like my dad has a doctorate in philosophy and theology from Harvard. Not the most entrepreneurial field to go into.
Mm. How do you think that you not coming from a long line of entrepreneurs has actually had a positive impact on what you've been able to do with the businesses you're in now?
I'm only speculating here, of course, because I don't know what it's like to come from a long line of entrepreneurs, but I think I went in with no preconceptions, and that helped me. I actually didn't read my first business or entrepreneur book until about 5 or 6 years into running my own business. I kind of went in there with that arrogance of a new entrepreneur. It's like, I got this. And my first business worked, and my second business worked. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I've failed multiple times since then, and I lost LiveLingo overnight, so I've had my failures along the way. But not knowing what I was getting into, I think just took away any fear factor. And by the time I realized what I was getting into, I wasn't scared anymore. At this point, I'm not scared at all to start businesses. I've done it. Luckily, after LiveLingo, I've had a number of other successes as well. Maybe not as big, but they've been successful. If they go bankrupt, I know I can do it again. I know what the steps are to bootstrap a 7-figure business. Yeah, I can't teach you how to do it in 30 days, but over a few years, I know I can do it again.
Yeah. It's an interesting conversation, and one I actually had with a friend the other day. And, the question that I posed to them is, I said, do you feel that with the access we have to information now, we're actually better off or worse off when it comes to growing a business? Because there's so much competing information out there. There's a lot of conflicting information. I think in many ways, we've never been in a better time to grow businesses with access to the interwebs and, all the social, everything. We've got the ability, to sell something to someone we've never met on the other side of the world. But the other side of that too is that we are just flooded with all this competing information out there, and it's very hard to kind of cut through the BS to go, well, which is the right strategy, or which is the strategy I should be following to grow my business?
I agree entirely. And it's because it's not, for me, it's not even all what's the right strategy, it's what's the right strategy for me, because there are multiple ways of doing this. It's not like this is the way and every other way is wrong. What I find a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs, I've been privileged enough to be, travel around the world and give talks at different entrepreneurship conferences at different levels, right? So people have very established business and even people who are starting out. One of the things I see, the differences that I've seen is people who are starting out, and I see this in language learning as well, they want to learn it all before they start. And you're never going to learn it all. I mean, they want to have a business plan and register their business and have an accountant and know how to get a website up and learn everything they need to know about SEO and learn about social marketing before they do the first step. And they got stuck in analysis paralysis, right? Simply absorbing information and not using it. I'm a big believer in, the Nike entrepreneurship model of just do it, where you just learn something, try it out, do it yourself. Doesn't work, okay, go and learn something else, try that out. And if it does work, stick to it until you've kind of taken it to its logical conclusion, and then add something on top of it. Don't just keep bouncing around. I know I'm guilty of this, but in theory, don't keep bouncing around to new ideas. Focus on one, and don't wait too long. Just do it. Worst case scenario, you'll fail. But one of the things that I like to say about failure is that failure is when you stop trying. Failure is not when something doesn't work. And that mentality shift for me helped a lot, because a lot of people say, okay, I tried this business and it didn't work. What do you mean it didn't work? It didn't make money is usually what they mean. But did you learn something? Did you learn how to put up a WordPress website? Did you put it up an email system so it would start, you had a drip email sequence? You didn't know how to do any of that stuff before. Now try it again. You already have that stuff. Learn something new. And by the time you try it 5 or 6 times, one of them will probably work, unless you're trying to launch Facebook, in which case I think the chances are like 1 out of 10,000 at that point. But if you're looking for like a lifestyle business that supports you and your family, I think if you try 10 times, more often than not, you'll have something by the end of it.
Yeah. There's a super fine line there that I see. Good friend of mine in one of our previous podcast episodes, Lisa Messenger, many years ago, she started off in a magazine. Now, she had no background in PR, no background in running a publication or magazine called The Collective Hub. And what was interesting at the time is that she specifically only hired people that had no prior experience. in running a magazine or being involved with PR, because she didn't want people to come in with the same preconceptions of what worked and what didn't work. And I think this is this fine line where, as entrepreneurs, we should have a mentor or a coach that can, provide us with, I guess, a faster path forwards, right? It's like, allowing us to stand on the shoulder of giants. But then I also think, though, that the essence of the business and what the business stands for must come from the entrepreneur. And there was a client that I was speaking to recently, and I shared with him, I was like, we can't tell you what problem you solve. We can't tell you what niche you serve. Like, that's on you as an entrepreneur to work out, like, what problem is it you're solving, and who are you solving it for? But we can absolutely coach you around and provide you with ways to build that business fast and never thought possible, so that it works without you and pays you a healthy profit, right? So I think there's this fine line where, from an entrepreneur, we need to have that ability to, as you said, fail fast and be willing to make, mistakes twice as quickly, because that will allow us to succeed twice as fast. But we need to know what is it we want to create in the world, and then find other people who can help us to create that, not try to delegate the whole entire thing, because in that case, may as well be an employee.
I agree. So that's one of the mistakes I actually made when I was starting out my business as well. I was afraid to delegate, unfortunately. I'm one of those entrepreneurs that waited way too long to delegate things out, because I had that weird preconception that nobody can do things as well as me, which is incredibly arrogant. What are we, 8 billion people almost on the planet? Not a single one of them can do emails as well as I can, whatever it was I was doing. I mean, it was utterly a ridiculous preconception. And as soon as I was able to let go of that part of my ego, exactly what you're talking about, I was able to grow. My business doubled within 24 months. I mean, and by then it was already a 6-figure business. So, I mean, we're talking quite a bit of growth when I was able to do that. And I wish I'd done the coaching route. I've still not ever done a business coach, because, as I said, this wasn't like a plan. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. This is what I'm going to do. These are the steps I'm going to take. It just kind of happened, and I just kind of went along. I'm willing to put in the hard work. And I think that kind of made up for a lot of the mistakes I made along the way. But I totally agree with what you said. Get a business coach, get somebody who can help you out, just even a mentor to start out, which is might be a little lighter than a straight up business coach. That will save you a lot of trouble and worth the investment. If you can afford it at the beginning, honestly, $2,000 in the bank account, that was not a feasible thing for a lot of people. And I know a lot of other people out there are like that. They don't have an extra $2,000 at all, let alone $2,000 a month to be paying for help.
Yeah. But in saying that too, though, we do have access, I guess, to YouTube and to Google, which has got some phenomenal advice. And, a decent mentor, a decent coach is putting out decent content anyway. Like, that's the thing is, so there's people you can follow, like this podcast, for argument's sake. We're interviewing amazing entrepreneurs every week that are giving insights into their successes and challenges and what they've done and what's worked and what hasn't worked. I think for me, more so, it's having that growth mindset, and being open to take on board the information, but not blindly. I think we still need to challenge what we're being, well, not even challenge, but ask questions, be curious around what we're allowing to kind of seep into the real estate between the 6 inches of our ears.
I agree. And Barry, I'll flip it on you. I'm going to ask you a question now. I'd be interested to hear your answer. What do you think somebody can do from being overwhelmed by the information that's out there? Because you're right. There are podcasts, there are YouTube channels. People just spend all day listening to it and they don't take any action. What's a little tip that can get people to take action? It's not something I have the answer to. I'm curious if you do in your experience.
Great question. Many years ago, mate, I adopted the principle of progress over perfection. So very much in my early business, I was like you. It's like no one could do it as well as I could. I had a team of 18 and no one could do it as well as I could. And I was still stuck in a prison cell that the moment I stepped out, this thing fell apart with 18 staff members there, and I've learned a lot in the last 15, 16 years I've been in business. And one thing that's really helped me a lot in the last few years is progress over perfection. I think a lot of people get overwhelmed because they try to do way too much too quickly, because they compare themselves to where they think they should be, instead of where they actually are. And I think that if we wake up every day with the attitude of like, today I'm just going to move my business forwards one step. I'm just going to move my relationship forwards one step, my finances, whatever it is, have a big, hairy, audacious goal, or have something you're aiming towards in the future. But realize that often we overestimate what we're going to achieve in a short period of time and underestimate what we're going to achieve in a long period of time. If I've learned anything myself, it's that any goal that I set, I will absolutely always achieve it. There's no question around that anymore. But the difference is that what I used to set 10 years ago and the time it took me to achieve that, and now is very, very different because I was so unrealistic. Whereas now I'll set a goal. If we don't quite achieve it, I'm not going to go and beat myself up about it or take myself down. As long as I can see that every day myself and my team is moving forwards. My relationship with failure and success has completely transformed. My relationship with overwhelm, like it's not even there anymore. You know, something happens in my company, like we make a mistake or you know, something goes wrong. It's not a big issue because we have process and systems in place. So we can simply look and go, cool, was the process or system followed? If it wasn't, why not? If it was, what needs to change? So I think, you know, yes, there is a lot of information out there, but I absolutely agree with what you say. More importantly is that you're taking action. So rather than consuming hours and hours of content, like listen to a podcast or read a book or do something until one idea pops out and just implement that, right? And then actually take some time to calibrate on, like, did that thing that I implemented have any form of positive result in terms of moving me towards my outcome? It's always got to be measured against, here I'm going here. Am I closer to this today or further away? Further away, great. What do I do instead now? And that significantly has made a huge impact in my life, and I know our clients' lives as well.
I love that. Now when people ask me, I'm actually going to have an answer for them, because I tell them usually that's one of the thing is, for me, just doing something has never been my challenge. So it's very hard for me to, you know, if something needs to be done, I've done it. It's kind of, and I understand that other people it's not as easy for everybody. So when people came to me asking that question, I never quite had an answer because I couldn't quite understand, like, why don't you just try something? And I understand there's fear and there's a psychology behind it as well. But I think that one progress thing is a great way to look at it. One of the things that I like to tell people that you mentioned in your talk as well is the why. I think a lot of people don't have that clear, right? They have the whole, yeah, I just want to be successful, but they don't know what successful means to them. I was guilty of this as well. You know, when you first think, I don't know, I just want to make $2,000 a month, something like that, then I'll feel successful. Trust me, when you get there, you won't. And then you say, oh, $3,000, that's when I'll feel like I'm making it. And you make 3,000. It doesn't matter. The number keeps going up, and that's not it. You really have to think to yourself. My son was born 3 weeks ago. My definition of success is totally different right now than it would have been if you'd asked me that 4 weeks ago. Success is just having time and freedom. This is my definition, nobody else's. It's having time and freedom. It's not really a financial thing. Finances help get you there, but that's not what success is. You really have to answer that for yourself. There's no wrong answer. If success for you is having 10 Ferraris, that's cool. That's not a problem. There's nothing wrong with that. Just make sure you're being honest with yourself. I mean, if that really is what will make you happy.
Yeah, absolutely. I see a lot with people that we have come into our organization. Most people haven't got the ability to think long-term because they're in some form of pain within their business. Let's be honest, the success rate of business is very, very low. And so, you know, trying to get someone to create this big, hero, audacious goal or discover what their purpose is when they haven't got $2,000 a month, like you say, is a challenging thing. And so this is where I think, once again, it's like, don't focus too far away. Like, what's the immediate thing right now? And as you said, like, why is this important to me? Well, if I had $2,000 a month, I could put food on the table. Great. Let's work with that now. And over time, that thinking starts to go further out. You mentioned too around fear. And I think this is another big thing for me. I've learned a lot in the last few years is to build a healthy relationship with being uncomfortable. Like, do what feels good, but understand that what feels good is not always easy, right?
Yeah. Like, ice cream feels good, but you shouldn't be doing that every day either. I mean,
Yeah, there's a difference there. And, you know, God, if you can't deal with fear or being uncomfortable, you shouldn't be an entrepreneur, because that's unfortunately where we spend a lot of our days, is feeling uncomfortable.
You and I are on exactly the same page. I think being an entrepreneur these days has become cool. And I will be the first to tell you, it is not for everybody. And I say it's not for most people. I mean, you know, if you have it'll be a lot easier. I'm a computer engineer. I could probably go to the US right now. There's a lack of programmers. I could get a 6-figure job. So every 15 days or 2 weeks or whatever, I will get a decent paycheck in my bank account, guaranteed, with retirement and health insurance and all the rest of it. That would be a lot less stressful than what I'm doing right now. I wouldn't enjoy it as much, maybe. But if stress was my number one concern and you just want to relax, don't be an entrepreneur. I mean, you'll have 2 or 3, it's feast or famine. You'll have these great years, then you'll have these stressful years. And it doesn't matter how successful you are. Look at Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah, money's not a problem, but he had to stand in front of the Congress or the Senate like a year ago, right? I mean, you think he wasn't stressed out by that? All of us have, no matter how successful we are in one part of our life, there's going to be stress in other parts of your life. So you can reduce them by taking a more well-trodden path than being an entrepreneur. But if you do want to be an entrepreneur, it's worth your time. If you can put up with this and, do exercise, meditation, all that kind of, those, eat well, those are all keys. But if you're not one to do those, I don't think you'll survive either.
Yeah. And I think coming back to an important point you shared before around like, oh, you think that $2,000 is going to fulfill you till you get there. Like I absolutely remember that journey. And in the beginning, it did start off materialistic. It started off with me just being able to kind of survive and get myself to a level. But what I've noticed, I feel, is that with a lot of successful entrepreneurs, and, define your own success, right? But successful entrepreneurs are the ones that can kind of almost create disassociation to immediate gratification and find a way to enjoy the journey as much as they enjoy achieving a goal or pushing the status quo. Because, stress is an equal part or challenge, adversity, whatever you choose to say, is an equal part of that. And if you're kind of, filtering in your success around how many times do you feel like you've achieved a goal, like it's a very limited experience as an entrepreneur, and you probably won't make it. Right. However, if you're more so focused on, well, how alive do I feel today? Like how connected to my team do I feel today? How connected do I feel to my purpose or to my clients and things like that? I think the journey will become a lot more enjoyable, and those times of stress we're able to manage a lot easier because we realize it's an important part of the journey rather than just when I achieve that goal.
Agreed. And I look at like building a business, to me, it is all about the journey now. Luckily, we got to a point where like finances aren't really my big driving force anymore. I mean, I drive a Hyundai. I mean, I don't drive like a fancy car or live in a huge house or anything like that, but I just don't worry about food or rent, luckily, anymore. So you need to find another motivation after that. And honestly, I love building up businesses. I mean, the creative part, to me, I come from a family of academics, but also artists. It's an art to me. I love the creative process. Once a business is successful, at a few million, I kind of lose interest because it's building a business and running a business are two totally different skill sets. And I found that mine is kind of the building phase. It is not the running phase. I can do it, but it's not my zone of like, where I really enjoy myself and all the rest. I usually hire CEOs for companies at that point, but it's the journey I enjoy. I mean, because you have to enjoy the journey, because otherwise, what's the point? You could spend 40 years to build a successful business, but if you suffered or were miserable for 40 years just so you can be happy for a year or two at the end, that's not the point.
Yeah, mate, I absolutely agree. I love that. Building a business and running a business is very different, and probably an important thing for maybe some of the listeners and viewers today to reflect on. Like if they may be bored in business right now, it's like, what's the appetite for risk? What stage of businesses are at and what stage of the business do they enjoy the most? And there was something you said earlier that spiked a thought in my mind. And that was where I remember, I said recently, but in the last few years, where I had these moments of feeling like a bit lost and almost like I wanted someone to tell me what to do. I think it was through the conversation with the coaches and stuff. And I felt a bit lost and wanted someone to kind of tell me what to do. Oh, that's right. It's when you said that you're very good at doing things, executing. And, if someone had come to me and said, hey, here's a plan, like it will be executed tomorrow. Like I was super, super ninja. But I was in this interesting position. And what I realized, it took me a few months, but what I realized is that I wasn't listening to my heart. I wasn't trusting my intuition. And I'd kind of fallen into this bit of a rhythm of, listening to others or being educated by others to determine what to do next. And although that worked for a period of time in that phase of my business growth, I'd reached this different point where it was now around me backing myself more than ever before and my intuition and my guidance and listening to my heart around, okay, what's the next decision to make? Have you ever had experiences like that as well, where you've kind of been a bit lost into what to do next?
Definitely. Probably every single day still. I mean, what am I supposed to do tomorrow? I don't know. I mean, I have a plan, but it's not that I know what I'm supposed to do tomorrow. I'm taking an educated guess as to what I'm going to do tomorrow. And I know exactly the phase of your business that you're talking about because I've gone through it multiple times. That I mentioned I built multiple 6 and 7 figure businesses. There's that phase in every single one of them. Because when you're starting businesses in general, we kind of all start from the same starting line, right? Kind of, we have access to this information. There's 20, 30, 40 different things we can do. But generally, those are pretty well documented in businesses, right? You can get a business book, whichever one you like, follow those steps, and that'll take you from 0 to like the first milestone. Maybe even the second or the third milestone. But as your business grows to a certain point, let's just say 6 figures, low 6 figures, you get into this weird position where you are now, whether you know it or not, one of the experts in your field, because there, let's say you started a 6-figure business on selling pink flamingos for lawn, or, for front lawns. They do that in the US. I don't know if they do that in Australia. There are not that many people making a few $100,000 a year in sales in that. So you're probably one of the 100 most experts in the world. So when you start going out there looking for information, there really isn't much that you don't already know. And I find that that's this weird place in businesses. This is across industry that I find there's plenty of information for how to start a business. Then there's all these books about, Warren Buffett and Richard Branson on how to run these multinational billion-dollar businesses. But there's this kind of space in the middle where it's really kind of weird. Once you get to like 100, 200, 300,000 up to, let's say, 2 or 3 million, it's really hard to find any information, right? What do you do when I can afford to hire 2 staff? Who do I hire? Or which direction? Is it a salesperson? Is it a virtual assistant in the Philippines? What's the right choice for me? And it's really hard, mainly because each industry is kind of different. So if you're in one industry, the answer would be different than if you were in another industry. And I still face that exact point that you're talking about every single day, where, I kind of go out there and I'm like, I don't really know what to do tomorrow. But the key is don't stand still. It's what we were talking about before. Dude, doesn't matter what you do, take an action. Go with your heart, go with your gut. I like going to your heart better because I like to say my gut is an idiot. If I went with my gut, I'd be bankrupt like in 2 days. My gut always chooses the wrong answer. But do at least something. At least by tomorrow or a week from now, you'll know whether it was right or wrong. And that'll, you'll be able to make another decision. But just don't sit there kind of like, what do I do? And then tomorrow, what do I do? What do I do every single day? Because then you're never going to move in any direction.
Yeah, fantastic advice. And if you look back, mate, over the last 12 odd years, you've been in business and entrepreneurs, you've achieved a bunch, you've built a bunch of different businesses. Like, what would you say is, the top, say, 3 bits of advice you've ever been given or you've ever realized or understood throughout this journey for you?
Ooh, 3. That'll be hard for me to figure out. Let's see if I can come up with 3 of them. But the first bit of information that I always say is I discovered a few years ago that my superpower is discipline. I've been practicing martial arts for over 20 years now. So I'm very good at doing a repetitive motion over and over and over again, just to make those kind of incremental gains in it. This ties in exactly to what you were saying before. Make sure you make a plan for at least 2 weeks. And then that plan should take you a step closer to your goal every single day that you work. That's it. A small step. We're not talking huge steps. But if you take 1 step every single day for 10 years, which is what I've been doing, you can reach, any height that you want. Well, within reason, right? Any height that you want, but you will be much happier and be in a better place when you get there. So make sure you're disciplined. Wake up every morning. Take that 1 step, no matter how small it is. Number 2, going back to the Nike entrepreneurship, just do it. Don't wait. Don't overanalyze. Try it. Your brain will come up with 1,000 reasons why not to do something. It doesn't matter whether we're talking a business, whether we're talking going on a diet, whether we're, learning an instrument. There are 1,000 reasons why you can't do it. So just start. Don't think. Just whatever you need to do to take that 1 step today towards your goal. As soon as you listen to this, get off the podcast, hit stop, go and do that 1 step. Continue doing that every single day before your mind can stop you. And number 3, I don't have time is not an excuse. I hear that so often. I'm sorry. I have a newborn baby. I run 3 businesses, Live Lingua, the Infinite Upcycle, which is my marketing agency. And I also have a podcast that I'm producing. And I have a 3-week-old running around the house, and I still have time to do these things. I'm not saying everybody should create 3 businesses at the same time and have a child in the same week, but I don't buy the excuse that you don't have time. I mean, you can make the time no matter what you're doing. I still don't. I go to the gym every morning. I don't miss that. I practice and teach martial arts 3 times a week. I haven't missed that. My guitar practice has fallen a little bit, I guess. But for the most part, I don't have time is not an excuse. Everybody's busy. You can make 5 minutes a day. I think that's 3.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. It's it's priorities, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't have time, but let's look at your calendar and how you're spending your time. What are you investing your time in? Are you binge watching Netflix for hours on end?
That's exactly the example I was going to use as well. Have you seen all of Game of Thrones? Then obviously you had the time, because I don't know how many episodes that is. I haven't watched it yet, but that's a few hundred hours you could have spent on something else or all the rest. Now, I am going to add a little caveat there, if you don't mind. I'll add a number 4, if you don't mind.
Yeah, please.
Spend as much time, and this was a discovery for me, spend as much time planning your breaks as you do planning your work. I find a lot of people do not spend the time to do this. They spend, okay, I'm going to work this week, and then when the weekend, they just collapse on the couch, but it's not like a planned rest time. Yeah. I spend as much time planning my rest. I get an hour I get to spend with my son every single day. That's non-negotiable. I get 8 hours of sleep every night, non-negotiable. On Sunday afternoons, I don't work. I have some hobbies. I play computer games. I mean, it helps me relax, whatever it is. Make sure you plan your rest every 6 months. Make sure you take a 1-week vacation, whatever the time allows, and just go and unwind. And a resting vacation. I'm not talking the kind of vacation where like every single day you're going to see a new site. You get home and you're more tired than when you left. Plan your rest as much as you plan your work. That's helped me a lot. Keeps you from burning out too.
I love that. That's absolutely. Whenever I plan my calendar, I have priorities, and the first thing I plan is time for me. Time for holidays, self-care, et cetera, et cetera. One cool trick that someone taught me many years ago is that when you plan your calendar or you book appointments, start with the middle day of the week and the middle of the day, and plan inwards out in your calendar. And so if you start with booking your first appointment on a Wednesday at 12 p.m. and you plan to the morning into the afternoon, and you go Thursday and Tuesday and then Friday and Monday, you always have time left at the start and end of your week in the morning and afternoon to spend with your family, with your kids, taking to school. Most people, what happens is they start planning their week from a Monday, and they fill Monday up, and they fill Tuesday up, and fill Wednesday up, and fill Thursday up, and fill Friday up. Whereas if we start from the middle planning out, there's always time in the morning and afternoon and at the end of the week to spend with your family, with your kids.
Okay, that's my takeaway from this podcast. As soon as I get off, because my meeting day is, Tuesday right now, I'm switching it on my Calendly account, moving it to Wednesday in the middle of the day, because I love that. I'm going to start implementing that as soon as we get off.
It works surprisingly well. Like I learned many years ago, it was more so when I was learning about wealth creation, is that we always use what's available to us. And time is the same. If we've got time available to us, it's amazing how quickly it gets filled up. Whereas if we just stop allowing that to be available, if we stop allowing ourselves to always be the point of least resistance for our staff to call out to, if we always stop allowing ourselves to spend whatever we've got, we can start to create these little buffers and limitations that actually provide us with more of that we want the most, whether it be time, whether it be money.
I think that's the profit first mentality for as far as, paying into your savings account first before you take any money out, and then you won't even see it's there. Yeah. My dad was in finance for a while before, after he did theology, he went into finance, oddly enough. And yeah, it's very much that. It's just auto, take it out of your account without thinking about it. It's an expense, saving money is an expense every month. And then you don't spend the money because you don't even see it, right? It kind of goes in your bank account, disappears, and hopefully in 30 or 40 years, there'll be a good amount when you're ready to retire. But I love that.
Yeah. Ray, mate, the time has flown. That's us today. For anyone out there that's watching or listening to this that's intrigued and maybe wants to connect with you, what's the easiest way to connect with you online?
Sure. And I actually invite people to connect with me. I mention this all the time. And I think, Barry, you know this as well. Most people never will do it because they think, that we're just saying this online. But I'm honest. Entrepreneurship is my sport. I would, some people get down and talk about football teams. I would love to sit down and talk to people about starting businesses, how they can grow their businesses. This is just a good time for me. So the places you can get in touch with me would be at livelingua.com, livelingua.com. You would have to go through customer support there, but they'll pass your email on to me. So just contact them. A more direct way to contact me would either be through my agency, infiniteupcycle.com. That's a content amplification agency that I run. And my email is on the contact us page there, ray@infiniteupcycle.com. And the final one is through my podcast, The Anomalous Educator. I have a podcast that helps teachers start online businesses. And you can go to that contact us page and just click on that. Finally, add me on Facebook or LinkedIn. Those are the two social networks. Look up Ray Blakney. I should come right up. You'll see me sword fighting since I'm a part-time sword fighter. So, you see a picture of me somebody sword fighting, you found the right guy, just hit add.
Fantastic. Mate, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Barry. It was a pleasure to be on.
If you're in a position that many of our clients were before joining us, which is that your business is controlling you rather than you controlling your business, we would love to have a chat to you to see whether or not we might be the right fit to partner with you to help you grow and succeed in business. And over the past 8 years, we've helped hundreds of business owners around the world to grow, scale, and succeed in business. Many of our clients report that we've helped them to triple their profits and double their time off in 12 months or less. If you jump onto YouTube and notice the hundreds of testimonies, you'd see that this is a common theme amongst them. If you're a business owner that's generating more than $300,000 a year in annual revenue, whether it's $500 million, $5 million, even $10 million a year, and you're looking to take your business and your life to the next level, we might be able to help. If you're noticing that your business is lacking structure, maybe systems or processes, maybe you're not quite attracting enough or the right type of quality leads, making enough sales, or maybe you're even having issues finding, hiring, retaining, and training the right team members, we could be a fit for you. Ultimately, we believe that we never have business problems, we have personal problems that are expressed through our business, and a lot of the work we do is with you as a business owner, helping you to constantly upgrade the way that you see life, the way that you make decisions, and the way that you help construct a profitable and purpose-driven business. In order for us to do that though, you need to book in a quick 15-minute application call with one of our scaling specialists here at the Game Changers. Through that 15-minute call, we're gonna ask you a bunch of questions to see if or how we might better help you. If we can't help you, we'll let you know politely and do our best to point in the direction of someone that can. However, we can help you. We'll look at booking you a 1-hour game plan session where we're gonna dive a lot deeper into where you and your business are at right now, where it is that you want to go in the next 3, 5, and 10 years time, and what are the potential roadblocks or challenges or even opportunities that are along the journey in order for you to get there faster. If you're really feeling that it's time for you to experience the love and the joy of running a business again, if you're really wanting to experience a business that does actually operate without you while still producing profit, we may very well be the right fit. So book in a 15-minute call, we can have a chat and see where we go from there. My name is Ray Blakney, and thanks for listening. Hopefully we get a chance to talk soon.